Serena, I'm so excited to see you again. We had such a great live just recently and had such a great chat, and you're just such an interesting person and you do such interesting stuff. So thank you for coming on my podcast and welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leaf. I had so much fun. Our audience loved our conversation. So thank you. Thank you for coming on as a guest. And thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to continue the conversation and hear all the amazing stuff that you do. So Serena, just before we begin, do you mind telling my viewers and my listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do? And then I got lots of great questions for you. And we're just going to have such an interesting discussion because what you do is fascinating.
Well, coming from you, that's a very exciting compliment because you do amazing things. Well, I am based in Santa Monica, California. I'm a celebrity chef and a nutritionist and a Reiki master. So I really culminate those experiences and my expertise with functional and integrative nutrition into what I call culinary alchemy. So that's really where
culinary alchemy. I love that term.
Oh, good. Well, it's exciting for me because I feel that people really understand it now. And it's really where I'm combining physical nutrition, where we're looking at your labs and we're really understanding what's going on inside your physical body with what I call spiritual nutrition, where we're also aligning the foods that we use to support your energy centers with your physical organ system. So it's a lot of fun. And that's my private practice. And then I also just have my lifestyle brand, Serena Loves, where we sell different products. You can see some in the background here.
And I can see your dog as well. Gizmo has joined the podcast.
Yeah, Gizmo's so funny. That's his spot. And he loves sitting by our products, by our crystals and our candles and our sprays. And then also we have Just Add Water. So I say we because my sister and I have really kind of built things together. She joined me a few years ago. Yeah. So, and then Just Add Water is what I call just everything you need in a day. It's just super nutrient dense, superfood powder blends. And then that's sort of a sister brand underneath Serena Love. So those are the things that I do.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so interesting. I love the idea of the concept of culinary alchemy and that you've brought in the spiritual with the food. Can you talk more about that and explain in a little bit more in depth about what that looks like? So you're talking about, because, this whole thing is so scientific in terms of the fact that we generate energy and we are alive, and it's our aliveness, our mind that's generating this energy through our body and our mind to brain to body. And that mind-brain body integration is so important to understand. And we've got to look after our brain and our body, and food is also generating energy. And people don't talk about that. They think this is something weird, but it's not. This is so scientific. So I'd love you to explain that a little more and what does that look like? What does it mean? How do you help someone with this? So.
No, it's a great question. And so really when I'm talking about physical and spiritual nutrition, you've got our organ systems, our from our root chakra. So I'm talking a lot about our energy centers, our chakras. So for those who don't really know what that means,
if you could explain.
We have chakras or energy centers that run along our body, throughout our body. And we actually have more than just 7. We have 12. We have infinite number. But I just kind of focus on the 7 because visually for clients and for people, it's in alignment with, say, the colors of the rainbow. So it's in alignment. And so we start with the root, which is our very base chakra. And I love to really focus on that one because that root chakra is what governs our feelings of stability. And when we're feeling, say, stressed or anxious and those type of feelings are all come from whether or not we feel grounded and whether or not our root chakra is blocked or imbalanced. And so when we're eating foods that are in our alignment to that energy center, we're actually supporting the nutrients in our body where we can feel grounded and calm. So, for example, we're reaching for root vegetables that come from the earth and have the energy of the earth in them. And so that's something that I have a chart that I often bring out to show people to make it very simple, but they're mineral rich.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to show that because as you say, it makes it simple to understand.
Yeah, so those are really mineral rich vegetables. And as you know, Dr. Leaf, minerals like Magnesium is grounding and calming and soothing for our nervous system. So, and then we go into our adrenals, which is governed by our sacral chakra, and that's our reproductive organs, right? And that's where we have a connection with our creativity and our relationships. And that normally goes with the color orange. And I know I'm connecting with colors, and it's really just to make it very easy for people to connect to and understand. But it also connects with our levels of hydration. So water, though it may not be orange, is something that's very, very connected to our sacral and our adrenals. And then dietary fats and oils, seafood, things that are orange, nuts and seeds, all of that is actually very connected with our sacral, because the nutrients and the phytonutrients and the proteins in those food products actually support our adrenal system as well. So we can go all the way up, but it's really exciting because when we're working with supporting our mind that way, I really feel that I'm just sort of using food as a tool. There's so many different tools that we have to really address our emotional body and our energetic body. And since we're already reaching for foods and we're already trying to nourish, our physical organs that way, if we're being just a little bit more intentional about it and a little bit more mindful about it and thinking, okay, I'm feeling very anxious today. I'm feeling stressed today. I'm feeling like a bit overwhelmed. Reaching for let's say a sweet potato, or a soup that's made with sweet potatoes or carrots and ginger, that beyond, the vitamins and the nutrients in those vegetables, that also is really, really dense in the energy that helps kind of ground us with the earth. And as you were saying, food also carries energy. So there's a resonance that has, and this is for people who really, really believe that energy is connecting. Energy is everything, and energy connects all of us. And so there's a frequency that our foods actually carry as well. And so that energy and that frequency then kind of helps balance out our body. So I'm open to any questions that you might have. I'm trying to make it very simple and digestible, especially if this is new for someone
people.
and they don't, yeah.
Appreciate that. And I love how you've explained it so simplistically. And my audience is very well versed with also certain scientific concepts. And I just want to ground this back and link this back to pure quantum physics. I mean, this is at our most,
yes.
we can see each other as solid, but at our subatomic level, we basically waves and particles that are shifting between waves and particles. And so we know that quantum physics is one of the most fundamental and accurate of sciences, and it helps us to understand how the non-physical and physical work together. And we know that if we're dead, there's no energy happening. When we're alive, there's this energy force that enables our body and our brain to work. So essentially how I understand what you've just said, if I translate that back to the science of the science in the world that I move in, and specifically looking at things like the theory of quantum physics, the sort of theoretical quantum physics, you're looking at using physical substances to help which are energy forces that contain certain, like magnesium has a certain energy, which is, and that's not anything weird. That energy is what is making Zoom work. So energy is not anything weird. We've got to see energy as a life force. So it's the electromagnetic forces, it's the photons, it's those things that are vibrating. And when they vibrate and in an enhancing way, then there is strength happening in your brain and your body. So that's why eating well is important, but you're adding another layer, if I'm understanding you correctly. Please correct you if I'm saying this wrong, where you are helping people to recognize when you're feeling a certain type of emotion, like anxiety or panic attacks or very depressed and flat, that there are certain foods that can help support the physical state that your body's in and give you like a little boost, and not going to make it go away, but it's going to give the support and increase resilience. Is that kind of, have I understood you correctly?
Yes. And then if you think about it, the biophotons that are in plants, in vegetables, and in foods, they're so powerful. And then that then goes back into our bodies. So, different plants, depending on whether or not they grow underneath the surface of the ground, in the earth, or if they're out and they're taking in that sunshine, they have different amounts of biophotons and they have different frequencies. And then if we're thinking about, let's say we're talking about the heart chakra, that's governed by the color green, and that is our cardiovascular system. So if we're talking about the type of foods that really support our cardiovascular system, those are all our greens, our microgreens or leafy greens. the sprouts, all those things are so nutrient dense, and they're dense in the nutrients that really help support our cardiovascular system. But at the same time, they're also supporting our heart chakra and kind of opening up that heart chakra as well. So there is so much quantum behind it, right? And it's really all about resonance. But there is, there is this slightly like spiritual, ethereal part of it too. Your mind needs to be open to that to really kind of bring it all together. So I really try to make food, a tangible path for people to understand that you can be supporting your brain, your body, your liver, your gut biome, but you're all, and your heart, but you're also supporting it from an energetic place as well, because every part of our body emits a frequency. All our organs emit a frequency. So
I love how you've explained that, and it's so important because we are spiritual beings, and our mind is basically our spiritual part of us, and our mind is working through the brain and the body. So you want that coherence and you want that enhancement to happen. So I love that you're adding another dimension where we all know that we need to find the right way of eating that works for us and eat clean food. And what you're saying is you're adding another dimension in terms of you can actually eat foods that can boost you will help to build more resilience in those certain states. So to understand what the different foods do to your energy levels is a way of equipping yourself to be stronger, and your brain and body to be stronger in those challenging times. And just the practical doing that is so helpful, isn't it? Just when you feel like you can't do anything, but you can do that,
Yes, exactly. You understand so well. And that's why it was such a strong theme all through 2020, when people felt that they were locked up, and they felt that they had all these options removed from them. And that's where I was trying to explain to them, but you eat, you move, and you breathe, and whether or not you're outside or inside, you're already putting this on your plate and into your body. So let's look at it from a different perspective. And if you're eating, all the colors of the rainbow throughout the course of your day in plants, you're kind of targeting all those energy centers, all those frequencies, but then all the spectrum of vitamins and nutrients and phytonutrients as well. And when you're making that connection, and you're seeing that salad and all the bright colors for more than just a plate of vegetables. You're seeing beyond that. You're actually taking this moment before you're putting that into your body, and you're allowing your body, just in that moment of presence and seeing that for what it is beyond just a plate of vegetables, you're already shifting into a parasympathetic mode. So you are actually helping your body go into a mode of receiving. Your digestive system is now prepared, and your mind is, you're releasing those biochemicals. And so now your body's ready to receive. So you're actually able to digest that food better than if you are, in a state of inflammation or fight and flight, or you're rushing or you're worried. When you see that for more than just what it is, you're able to receive it and actually absorb those nutrients in a different way. And so that's also all very much part of culinary alchemy. It's just like that presence as well, and that intentional energy that is already there with your food. It's just taking that moment and seeing it for what it is beyond what it just seems like. Understanding that carrot, beyond the beta carotene and the vitamin C, it's another level of healing for your body. It's another level. It's another tool. It's something else you can build your immune system with. And so you see it differently. And that level of gratitude and appreciation also then goes into your cellular data. And so it's what you're already doing, it's just like one step further. And you're empowering yourself. And so even if you feel that you're limited, or things are opening up now, but when and if, because those moments may come again anytime, that you feel that you're limited, seeing something like a plate, like the food in front of you, for more than just what it is, actually you're empowering your physical body and your immune system, because you're able to receive it better. And it's also a reframe in the mind.
I love this. It's so interesting, and I'm nodding my head because this really is in alignment with the work that I do too, is that your mind doesn't, your mind runs your digestive system. Your mind is running the health of your brain and your body. Your mind's running your heart. Your mind is, so with your mind now, you're teaching us to be mindfully attentional to the food, the choices, the impact that it's having. And that's the whole spiritual side. So it's not just a carrot. It's actually something that's giving you this kind of level of energy in your body and do all these amazing things. Because as you say, there's a lot more than 7 chakras. So there's a lot more, there's all this, our whole body's energy, and it's so complicated. And you're actually getting empowered to facilitate that process, which is amazing. And that mind work is setting you into the right frame of mind. I mean, I know from my work that if you are eating when you're anxious and you just grab that food and don't think intentionally about what you're eating and what it could do for you and what you're putting into your mouth, you may be eating an amazingly healthy meal, but if you can lose up to 86% of the nutrition because, for example, your pancreas doesn't secrete the necessary proteins that are required for assimilation. So, you know, that's just, this is a fact. Our mind influences the brain and the body. You're giving a beautiful, practical and logical way to harness that and to redirect. And if you really worked up, focusing on something like food in this very logical way, in this very intentional way, can really also help calm down the neurochemistry and help you deal with the emotions. So it's got this back and forth feedback, beautiful feedback loop that's being set up. So it's so interesting. So do you consult with clients or do you... Okay, so people could, I mean, I know we're going to ask you at the end, but just at this point, if people want to know more about that, we're going to put the link in the show notes. But would they, do you do personal consultations or do you workshops, or how can people find out more?
I do. Actually, you know, there's a lot of content that I put on my website, which is serenaloves.com. And then, of course, on my social platforms at Chef Serena Poon, I put a lot of content out just because I just want people to understand and know and empower themselves, and then to teach, you know, their family and their friends. I have a practice. So I do take on clients and I do consultations as well. And so people can reach out to me through my contacts there. So either on social, details on the webpage or on social. Absolutely. And then I'm putting together some basic coursework so that people can really teach themselves, because it's not just about what you're putting back into your body. You know, anytime you're preparing food, whether it's something you drink, something you eat, and then you're giving it to someone else, you have the ability to also help boost their immune system as well, you know, in the same way. So again, as you said, it's this beautiful loop, a feedback loop that we can do. And so much of it just has to do with intentionality, presence, and just understanding. And I try to make it very, very simple. You know, there's so much science and data and stats that we can put behind it. But just trying to keep in mind, just this is why you actually do eat the rainbow. It is to get the spectrum of nutrients, but also to support these energy centers and kind of create that constant flow, you know, like prana, that chi.
Yeah, that's true. It's all cycles of tension and release. And when we get anxious or progress through like a chronic anxiety, we don't have the release in our cycles of the tension release. So our biochemistry cycles, our neurophysiological cycles, the energy, all driven by energy, are like this spinning instead of tension release, tension release. So what you're saying is through the hardcore scientific facts, you can bring in a nutritional approach to help in the process. So and I think that's amazing. Now you also do other stuff. Okay, so you talk a lot about how to turn setbacks into comebacks. Can you talk for a little bit about that? I know that's another area you love to talk about.
Well, because I truly feel that with every obstacle, there are opportunities. Every challenge is a gift. And I've definitely been through, you know, a journey of challenges. My career started because both my parents had cancer. And so just wanting... Thank you. No, we lost our daddy to cancer. I was in college. It was my last year. But then 2 months after, our mom was diagnosed with cancer, and they're both in their 40s. So she's still with us. She's okay. But that was the beginning of my journey, you know, and thank you for your kind words, because I wish my daddy were here, but it's because of him that I've been able to help so many people, and that there are certain people I know I've impacted their lives in a way that I've truly helped them heal, or at least make their quality of life exponentially better than what it would have been. And that really comes from the passion that came into me when my family went through that experience. And I've had some of my own health issues as well. And so, you know, and that came from a lack of self-care. So as a caregiver and wanting to take care of my parents, this became, you know, my journey. But along that way, I also realized that you can't be a caregiver and self-sacrifice, and it doesn't work that way. So that became my own personal journey of health, which ended up leading me into having 8 surgeries. But
Wow, that's a lot.
yeah, it was a lot. It definitely one surgery is a lot, so 8 is a
And
lot.
the impact on your body just from the anesthesia alone, let alone the actual surgery, and let alone the reason
Yeah.
for the surgery and then the healing, it's huge.
Yeah. So what that's taught me is I really know how to help prepare people pre-op, post-op, just to understand like how to prepare the body, how to prepare the cells and the tissue to optimize and healing, the type of anesthesia, how long you're under, the antibiotics, all of that. Because even for me, I've had 8 surgeries. I had MRSA, Dr. Leaf. So I had MRSA, is a deadly staph infection for your listeners that may not be aware. And the amount of antibiotics I had to be on because of this was off the charts. And, even with all the antibiotics, I never got C. diff. I never had extreme, obviously I had to continue the healing process every time with my gut. And your gut affects your whole immune system and your mind. But it never got to a point that a lot of people, I never had leaky gut. A lot of people do get after being on bouts of antibiotics because they just know how to support the gut. And so this whole journey has actually allowed me to be a better practitioner. I am that much better at my job and serving because I've been through it. And so in that I really feel that that's where the opportunities are. From my obstacles, I found opportunities to help serve more and to serve better. And just as a byproduct of that, my practice has been very successful and my brand has grown very organically just from that. So I never would have thought that, and it was definitely not something you think at the time, when you're just trying to
In the
heal
midst of
yourself.
that, yeah. No,
No,
it's frightening. That you
but
can,
when you're
when you're in the midst of that pain, sorry, it's frightening. And then you don't realize what good can come out of it. So that, I mean, it
no,
may sound so cheesy, out of every obstacle, there's an opportunity, but it really is a fact. I mean, it's a really
yeah,
hardcore fact that you can either take that and it can break you, or you can take it
yeah,
and try and do something with it where you're focusing on enhancing and helping others, which is amazing.
yeah. I mean, I really think that's the mind frame that you really have to look at everything, whether it's COVID and the pandemic, whatever it is just, okay, where is, and it's not about silver lining necessarily, it's really about, okay, there's a lesson in here. And like, how can I take what's happening and how can I teach it? How can I make this better? How can I use this in a way to serve? And I think that when you look at it through those lens, you actually see the opportunities. If you're not looking at it through those lens, you won't see how you can use that particular experience, challenging or not. You won't see the opportunities. But when you look at through the lens of what can I learn from this where I can turn around and serve others from this experience, you will see the opportunities just start showing up because you're just looking at it through a different set of lens.
I love how you've put that, and it's so true. I cannot agree with you more. It's so empowering to be able to do that. And I showed with my research that you can, when you start being empowered to actually look at that toxic situation and the toxic stress that it's brought, and you can look at it differently, you actually then can start seeing the barrier as the opportunity. But it takes that mind shift. It takes that almost like it's like a choice. So it's like you can either get stuck under, or you can change your mind from that. Okay, what is this? Like, I love the way that you posed that question. What is this and what can I get out of it? As you said, not just the silver lining, because sometimes that's just not enough. You said something very, very key, and I want to emphasize that. You didn't just look for the silver lining for you. You looked at what can I learn from this so that I can help others. And I think that's very key, because we don't live in isolation. We live, yourself with all the work you do and the studies that you've done, is that we are, as quantum, as human beings, we are, get away from the word, as energetic human beings, as human beings. It's not about you, it's about you in the world. I think that's what you said. I cannot emphasize that enough. What you said is so key. If the shift of the mindset is, ask yourself the question, not look for the silver lining for you, but look for what is the toxic issue and what can you do with this to help others? That is so good. That is so good.
Yeah, that's what really got me out of a really dark place that I was at when I was after my fourth surgery, and I nearly died after the surgery. I had a massive hematoma. 12 days post-op, I lost nearly 2 liters of blood. It was internal, and I was very lucky. I was able. I had some clients that knew it was on a weekend, and they knew the medical director at Cedars, and they were able to come get me and basically save me. Because they had to open me up and find the tear. I had a tear from an internal stitch, and after that, I had to start to heal, and I'd lost so much blood, and I was chef at this point. I couldn't work. I couldn't even use this left side of my body, my left arm. I couldn't even raise it for months, and in that time, I really was. You question why. How did this happen? Why does this happen? How am I going to support myself? What am I going to do? I can't use my this part of my body, and I'm so weak. And then it brought me back to why I had gone to culinary school in the first place. It brought me back to why I was in my line of work, and it was back to my daddy and my mom, and how I'm in this work to find ways to use food as medicine, food as healing in an artistic and an intangible way for other people. So, it was reminding me of that. And then I realized I know what to do to heal myself. I'm doing for other people. I know what to do. And so putting that practice into place and then seeing, I'd gone from what they told me would be 8.5 weeks before I could go back under to build my hemoglobin back from 9. I did it at 5.5 weeks just by really curating the type of food I was putting into my body, the timing, all of it, but realizing I could do this for other people. And I could really teach people what they can do pre-op, post-op to really optimize their healing because I was able to do it myself. But it took reminding myself, wait, why am I doing what I do? And to remember that it was in service of others. And so that's what really helped pull me out of that space and to think, okay, we all go through our journeys for a reason. And if you understand that and realize that every part of your journey, every step, may it be painful or magical, that there's a reason behind it. And then to really look at that, and then you see that it's all meaningful. Even the darkest moments are meaningful. And that is literally what brought me to a place where I started my consulting practice while I was healing. And that really allowed me to build what I have today. I mean, I ended up that year with half not being able to use my upper half of my body for half that year. I made 3 times as much as I had any other year before, and that was I didn't even know how I was going to survive, coming out of that. But it was because I thought, okay, how can I how can I use this experience and not just be miserable about it? Like, how can I make sure someone else doesn't go through this, or someone else knows what to do if they're going through this? And that's how that happened. That's how culinary alchemy really essentially birthed.
I hear you saying you took your knowledge, you curated. So your opportunity, you've put words to how you looked at it. You looked at the question, what do I know? I know about culinary school. You took and you curated that. Well, I've got to feed my body is damaged. So you took the knowledge, you started working on it for yourself. And then at the same time, you said, okay, well, I can use this for others. And then focusing in on that pre and post surgery situation where and you bring in the whole spiritual aspect. I mean, this is a whole package that is incredibly powerful. And thank you for doing that and for helping so many people. And I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this now and thinking, hey, that's something that I didn't really think about. We don't, you go to, you saw this, you see this yourself. You go to a hospital and you see what the food that's available. And, there's just no sort of deep understanding of that and all the preparation around just the whole mental side of surgery, pre and post. And then the traumatic change to your life, not being able to use your top part of your body. And so that shift, but I mean, someone's in a really, I know these people listening to this and they know someone maybe who's in a really dark place that they just, you tell them this, they'll just say, oh, well, that's for them and not for me. What would you say to someone, who's in a place where their life has just completely and utterly fallen apart and they just feel so like, well, no opportunities. It's just they can't quite yet see that
Yeah.
toxic situation has got this. Maybe there's something in there that you can take and you can transform into.
Yes.
There's something that you can link to what you're experiencing and transform that into
Yeah.
something to help others. Is there something that you would say or guide or, because I'm sure you didn't just get there overnight. I'm sure there was a process of, and people maybe even said to you, hey, there's a silver lining, or gave you advice or said it's going to be, you get through this, and you didn't want to hear that because you just couldn't get through it in that moment. The world was bleak and it was difficult to get through. So that's the kind of situation. I don't know if you have any good advice.
Well, I have a few different things that I feel like has worked for some people that I've worked with. For me, I think, again, just to remind, and this may be hard when you're in it, because when you're in it and you're really, your mind is kind of in that victim state and you're just living it that way, it's hard to think outside of yourself, right? It's hard to think about, it's hard to think about a why that's not you. And for me, because
that's good. You're hard to think about a why that's not you. That's so good.
But that's what worked for, no, thank you. That's what worked for me, because my daddy was such a powerful force in my life. And even though he had been gone, he was my why that wasn't me. And just thinking about what he had gone through, and that mark that it left in me, that inspired me to want to teach and show other people how they could live better, how they can heal, how they can help others heal if it's not just themselves. And so that was he was my constant reminder, my why that's not me. But sometimes it's hard to get there. If you're really in the thick of it, and you're in a really dark place, one of the things that I find that helps, and I do this, let's say, with people who have something simple like weight gain, weight loss, right? And some people really struggle with that. And one of the things that I remind them is, okay, so did you always weigh this? There was a point in your life that didn't come out of the womb, at this size and this weight. So there's a point that you were at a place that you felt better in your skin and in your body that way. So that means you've already been there before. So that means you can always go back to that, because that has already been you. That is you, and that is a part of you. So when you're in a really dark place, like it's to really rewind, go back and think about the really light place that has been a part of your life at some point. And that's not gone. That is as present as what you're going through in that moment. It's just not what your focus is, And so that's what I try to do with clients or people that I've worked with who are really kind of in the thick of it, is to like think about and really tune into that time in your life and connect to that energetically. So there's a practice that I do, that I have people do. It's like a gratitude practice, but just one step further. And, let's say you have a gratitude practice, or if you don't, you can start one at any time. And when you're connecting to your gratitude list, so whether or not you write it down or you just recite it in your head or you say it out loud, and you say you're thankful for your loved one, your kids, or instead of just rattling through that list, sit with one or two or three of them. Each, just sit with one at a time and think about that person. Or maybe it's a tangible item, maybe it's something that your mom gave you, something, a sentimental item, whatever it is, you just connect with that. But you sit with it and you connect with it until there's a physiological response. So it's not just a thought, but now you're connecting your mind and your physical body, your emotional body and your physical body. There's a trigger. And so now when you think of that person, you feel your heart flutters, you feel warm, or maybe you're thinking about that favorite dessert your grandmother used to make and she's passed now for 10 years, and you actually smell it and you can taste it. That feeling is powerful. That intentional feeling is powerful. And you can take that feeling, that energy, and you can put it back into yourself. So you can direct it towards food, water. You can direct it to, as you're preparing food for someone that you love, that energy is powerful. And you then can put it back into the food you're preparing, the drink, your coffee, your tea, anything, which then goes back into your body and that goes into someone else's body. Now, if you can do that, you can do that without food. If you can connect to that moment, if you're in a really dark place and you're connecting to that moment, that that moment of time that you were really happy, you felt so loved. Whatever it is, that, and really connect to that feeling until you feel it, that means it's still there. It's still there and it's just as present. And then we almost use this energy as a tangible force.
That's totally scientific.
Something
Yeah.
else.
Because it's wired in your brain. I mean, it's that thought. You saw me hold up these thoughts when you interviewed me.
Yes,
but I mean, what you're doing
yes.
is you're sitting there in this darkness and you're
Mhm.
actually choosing to focus. I love this, that you take what you're grateful for and then really focus in on that until you've made that connection, that you recall the memory, and then you allow the mind, brain, body, the neuropsychophysiological process, the psychoneurophysiological process to actually occur. And then that starts bringing back all those details.
Yeah.
And it's because it never goes. It's once it's there, it's there.
Always
It's
there.
always there. It's in your three places, mind, brain, and body. So you're just focusing on and then you take that energy, because as soon as this is now dominating, you're
Yes.
taking that, this is generating all kinds of incredible energy. You then put that back in. So you use that to help you boost, like a little booster
Yes.
shot for that
Yes.
next thing. I love that. That's absolutely amazing. And that's actually a really something that if someone's helping a loved one, because I get asked that question a lot, how can you help a loved one who's in a really bad place?
Yeah.
That's a really nice thing to do. Say, let's just walk them through and try and help them find something, and then actually do the little exercise with them and help them to boost back into, get into that boosted state. And then you're probably more in that state for that question that you were talking about. What do I know?
Yeah.
And what do I, and so if I understood you correctly, take the toxic situation and what do I know? And then how can I use this, as awful as it is, but I know something. How can I get the two together to help others? Is that correct? Have I understood how you broke that question down?
Yes. Yes,
So maybe
exactly.
you need a bit of this boosting first before you can do that slightly harder work of asking that question.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
really
like a
good
two-step.
advice.
And Dr. Lee, you can probably lend even more information to the audience than me, but just thinking about the biochemicals that your body is releasing when you're in that state, just what comes out of your brain, and then also your adrenals when you're in that state and you're really focused in on that, and it can then actually shift you, can shift you so that even outside of that moment that you're remembering that time that you felt comfortable, you were really happy, just that'll take you out of that place more than just that moment, because now the chemicals are different in your body.
Yeah, that's right. And you feel that. So when you start feeling something, when the neurophysiology kicks in, then you start getting boosted to then do the feedback loop into your mind, because then your mind's going off racing down one part. You can then actually so you're kind of using your mind to change your mind. That's wonderful. And you're getting that whole neurochemical feedback, using your mind to catch the thought, catch the toxic ones. You're like literally using this to catch this one and focus on that until the neurophysiology shifts. Because you've got to remind yourself, it's got to activate, it's got to wake it all up.
Yeah.
And then once it's woken up, then you can hang on to that and use that energy. That's so good. That's really, really so good. Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that. I mean, there's so much more that I wanted to talk to you about, but you've covered a lot already in some of the things that I wanted to ask you. What would you, in terms of a closing, you've given us so many pearls of wisdom. How do you clean up your mental mess? Let's talk about that concept. Now, this podcast is called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. How do you do it? I'm sure you got a whole lot of people are thinking, hey, what does she do? What does she do to keep herself like healthy, beautiful, that organized, going forward, asking the right questions and so on?
Honestly, I keep it so simple. I try to, getting present is one of gratitude and presence. Those are the two things. And you don't need anything tangible. You can do it anywhere at any time. You don't have to buy anything, just like gratitude and presence. And it just brings you into a state of calm. So if you can just get present, especially if you are fluttering and you're feeling like everything is a mess. I mean, just a little breath work is helpful. So I do the 4-4-4, which is very simple.
That box method. Yeah. That's really good.
I do that. It takes you about 20 seconds and you can just repeat it a couple of times. So within a minute, you've already changed your state. And then just being very, very present. And sometimes people don't really understand what it means to be present. And just focusing, just doing the count, just counting going through the box when you're counting 4 and holding and counting 4. Now you're present because all you're thinking about is counting to 4 and breathing in and breathing out and holding that breath. And then all of a sudden it calms your whole system. And then immediately just kicking into gratitude and just being so grateful for anything in that moment. You can be grateful for just sitting here, grateful for that the fact that you were able to calm yourself down, grateful that you are here and you're alive and you have all the things that you have. Just make it so, so simple. And then once you've gotten there, the third thing to acknowledge is that you are a powerful, powerful being, and that's what we tend to forget. The human body is the most complicated machine. There is literally nothing more we're doing everything virtually. We've got phones and computers and we Zoom, and there is nothing more complicated than the human body, in my opinion. And it just runs and it self-heals. And so if you think about it, you by yourself, your sovereign self, you're an incredibly powerful machine. And we forget that because we forget to take that moment of presence and to realize we go to sleep. Yeah, we go to sleep. We sleep, we breathe, our bodies work, we wake up, and then we dive into our phone. But what happened in between? And just to take that moment and to acknowledge that. And it's a very empowering tool that you can give to yourself. And so that's what I do, because obviously the days can get full and there's a lot, and all kinds of things happen outside of your control. But when you bring that back to you, when you realize that
You give yourself in control again.
And you are so very powerful, and you have the ability to heal, and you have the ability to do so much more than you acknowledge yourself for. It changes your mindset, changes your state of mind, your state of being. And so those are the things that I do.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's so important because it helps you cope within environments that we are trying to change, that are existing. There's so many wrongs with society that we need to change, and it can be so crushing. So it's important that we have enough resilience so that we can actually cope in ourselves, so that we can cope in the world. And I love that. That's really amazing. Where can people find out more about you? I know you said it earlier on, but say it again.
Oh, thank you so much. People can find me on my website, which is serenaloves.com, or on my social platforms, and Instagram is where I'm most active, and that's Chef Serena Poon. So yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'll put that it's a pleasure. We'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you for a lovely discussion. It was really, really great to learn about culinary alchemy and just the importance of getting back from a setback. These are very important. And just another angle on gratitude. Everyone talks about gratitude statements, but you gave another angle on that. So thank you for that, and that great asking the difficult questions in the difficult times. That's really, you've made it very simple. So thank you for your time and your wisdom and your experience, and for pulling through and bringing your knowledge to the world to help so many people.
Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Leaf.
Thank you so much.